It's June 5th, JLD here, and welcome to MSTR today. In this show, we're talking about how MSTR's future is bright. Bitcoin's future is bright. Just plain and simple, the future is bright. We'll also be talking about the three main core drivers of MSTR, also the Bitcoin yield and MNAV of strategy going into that, plus strategies ranking. How are they doing compared to the S&P 500? I also have an epic video from Jesse Myers you do not want to miss. I love this video. You really need to watch this if you haven't already. Plus a great Michael Saylor clip you're not going to want to watch too, actually. And this video is not financial advice. It's not. It's just not financial advice. But I would love a comment. If you appreciate the hard work that I'm putting in for you every single day, creating these videos every day, Saturdays, Sundays, it doesn't matter. Put a comment below. Comment for support. Let me know where you're watching from. I love those as well, seeing where people are watching around the world. And let's dive on in. All right. Today's first post is from Michael Saylor, who just wants us to know the future is bright and it's orange. And cheers to anybody who's watching this, drinking a cup of coffee or a cup of tea right now. I'm drinking my cup of coffee as we speak. And the future is bright. Bitcoin's future is bright. Strategy's future is bright. I am so excited to be in this moment in time with you. Chris says strategy is powered by three core drivers that all fuel each other. One, you have the Bitcoin torque, which is return on capital. Two, you have the Bitcoin yield, which is the growth in Bitcoin per share. And then three is the MNAV, premium to net asset value. And by the way, I pointed this out in a prior video, but I loved how during the Stride webinar, Michael Saylor kept saying multiple times that the MNAV is going to go to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 and beyond. That is a driver that Michael Saylor sees in the future. And by the way, if MNAV goes to 4, 5 and beyond, hang on to your saddles because it's over. And by the way, when I say over, I mean over in a good way. And Michael Saylor said it not once, not twice, but 3 times. He's like, we see the MNAV going to 3 to 4 to 5 and beyond. I mean, I that was one of the most exciting comments I've heard Michael Saylor make in maybe a month or so. And he says exciting things every day. That was unbelievable. So again, Bitcoin torque, that's why Strife, Strike, and Stride are amazing because they give us incredible Bitcoin torque. Specifically, Strife and Stride give us a 12.8% torque of that return on capital because there's no dilution whatsoever of MSTR shares. And of course, that improves the Bitcoin yield because the Bitcoin growth in Bitcoin per share is going up, 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 up. And then what happens? The higher Bitcoin torque increases, Bitcoin yield, and as a result, justifies a higher MNAV. So higher Bitcoin torque increases Bitcoin yield, and as a result, justifies a higher MNAV. And Michael Saylor sees these two things happening for sure, which is why he sees the higher MNAV of 2, 3, 4, 5, and beyond. Now, of course, once it gets to 5 and beyond, there then will be times that it goes back down to 3, 2, and below because that is the volatility. That is the implied volatility that we need to keep the stock interesting. That is where volatility is vitality. So higher Bitcoin yield justifies a higher MNAV, and as a result, increases the Bitcoin torque. Higher MNAV increases Bitcoin torque, and as a result, increases the Bitcoin yield. It's the strategy trifecta. And as you can see right here, Bitcoin torque, Bitcoin yield, and MNAV, it's the trifecta. Now, Brian has a great post where he says, the pivot is nearly complete. 1, abandon Doge. 2, big, beautiful bill of $3 trillion deficit spending. 3, remove the debt limit. And 4, let the money printer rip. Hope you've got some Bitcoin. And by the way, I also hope you have some MSTR equity. I really do. Chris says, below is my current working framework for thinking about Bitcoin yield and MNAV. For Bitcoin treasury companies, everything is downstream of Bitcoin yield. If the above statement is true, then MNAV is a reflection of the market's expectation of future Bitcoin yield. As an example, a 2x MNAV implies the market expects a company to generate 100% Bitcoin yield in the future. Note, for a company to generate 100% Bitcoin yield, it must, at minimum, double its Bitcoin stack, depending on its capital efficiency. Just because a company doubled their Bitcoin stack does not mean they doubled Bitcoin yield. This is very important. Not all Bitcoin purchases are created equal. Now remember, Bitcoin yield comes with diminishing returns because each additional Bitcoin contributes less to Bitcoin per share. This is also very important. Factors to consider when evaluating Bitcoin treasury companies and their ability to generate Bitcoin yield include, but are not limited to, and I'll go through this in a second here, but I want to just say this is exactly why Michael Saylor made Strike, Strife, Stride, and whatever other instruments he has coming up down the road, because this is going to increase Bitcoin yields at a great rate without diminishing the actual number of shares due to the dilution of the MSTR equity. That's not going to happen because of that. So number one, founder-led. 2, management competence. 3, current size of Bitcoin stack. 4, track record. By the way, I think that right now MSTR is batting 1,000,000%. 5, brand equity and trust. 6, access to capital markets. 7, capital efficiency. 8, economies of scale. 9, leverage ratio. 10, geographic jurisdiction. 11, liquidity. 12, options markets. 13, credit rating. 14, index inclusion. And 15, narrative. I mean, literally, it's unbelievable. Strategy smashes 14 of these 15. It really does smash number 14 as well, which is index inclusion, because it's in the QQQ, it's in the Russell. But it's really going to smash it once the S&P 500 happens, and they'll be 15 for 15 at the max. And no other Bitcoin treasury can touch them with a 10-foot pole based off of this. So using this framework, the difference between the market's expectation of future Bitcoin yield and your expectation of future Bitcoin yield will determine how undervalued or overvalued you believe a company is today and the size of the opportunity. We can also extend this to say that all discrepancies in valuations around Bitcoin treasury companies are ultimately discrepancies in future Bitcoin yield expectations. Boom, mic drop, end of story. Jeff wants us to know that MSTR is now ranked 94th in the largest U.S. company market cap at $105 billion. It fell 2 companies today behind KKR's Fiat investment firm. Day 317 in a row of qualifying for the S&P 500 market cap threshold, the 13th largest publicly traded equity by volume, which is an insane number. So their strategy tucked in at 94. And once this starts climbing, watch out above. It's going to start climbing fast. Man, I can't wait. Okay, now we got some great epic Michael Saylor video clips. Also one from Jesse Myers you don't want to miss. So let's roll.
This guy Satoshi invented digital gold on an open protocol monetary network. And we call that Bitcoin. And the way it works is I define 21 million gold coins. I dematerialize them in cyberspace. I make them infinitely divisible by 100 million units each, and that's called a Satoshi. Then I make it impossible to ever make any more than 21 million. And then I give you a protocol where any computer can send the coin or the Bitcoin to any other computer without a middleman. And I make it possible for you to take personal custody of your asset. So if I want $1 billion worth of property, I can carry it around in my head by memorizing the passphrase. I can hold it on a hardware wallet. I can hold it on a mobile phone. I can put it to any computer in the world. Then I can move the $1 billion to any custodian in the world in a few minutes for a pittance. So the idea is, if I took gold and I said, you can't mine any more gold, check, that would make gold more valuable. And if I said, you can't use it for jewelry, there's no jewelry being melted down into gold, that makes gold more valuable. And if I capped it at 21 million and I numbered each of the gold coins, that'd make it more valuable. And if I made it infinitely divisible, and if you could authenticate it in a split second with a mobile phone, that would make it more valuable. And if I made it programmable with a protocol, and I made it possible for a computer to make 1 million transactions a second and talk to 100 million other computers using Intel semiconductors, that would make it more valuable. So in essence, we created programmable gold on a network. And then what's the last twist? The last twist is you make it decentralized so that there's 10,000 different computers, or maybe even 100,000 different computers running the software at the same time with an identical copy of the ledger, so that no company, no CEO, no government, no regulator can meddle with it, the protocol. So it is literally, it's like a virus released into cyberspace, a living life form you can't stop it without turning off every computer on Earth at the same time, and you have to keep them turned off forever, right? You can't kill it. And so the idea of Bitcoin is apex property for the human race. And for the first time in the history of the human race, if you have $1 million, you can hold $1 million in your head, walk through a border, send it across the world, take custody, or transfer it to any custodian, or prove that you have it in a split second. And you can't do that with anything else. That's what Bitcoin is.
Let's be real. If you've ever tried to invest, especially as a beginner, you've probably asked yourself, how do I even find good stocks? What should I buy or sell right now? And seriously, what the hell is going on with the market today? I ask myself those same questions all the time. And that's exactly why I started using Investing Pro, the powerful new platform from investing.com that helps you make smarter investing decisions without drowning in information overload. One of my favorite features, Warren AI. It's like ChatGPT on the stock market, but with real-time data-backed answers straight from investing.com's massive financial database. Want to know why NVIDIA dropped yesterday or why now is a good time to buy Tesla? Just ask. Warren AI gives you instant, up-to-date insights you can actually act on. I recently asked it where to invest $10,000 right now, and the list of stocks that returned, fire, full of actionable ideas I hadn't even considered. Bottom line, if you want to invest smarter, faster, and with more confidence, Investing Pro with Warren AI is a game changer. Check it out now at investing-referral.com/MSTR. Online shopping has never been easier, but this ease is new enough that we remember a time when entering all our credit card info every time we purchased something online was the norm. Luckily, we don't have to do that anymore thanks to Shopify. That's right, that purple Shop Pay button that makes it seamless to purchase online is powered by Shopify. And Shopify doesn't just make it easy to buy, it makes it incredibly easy to start a business no matter your experience. Shopify is the commerce platform behind 10% of all e-commerce in the US, and they make it super easy to get up and running with beautiful, ready-to-go templates and built-in marketing and email tools. Worried about tracking inventory, payments, and analytics? No stress. Shopify helps you manage it all from a single dashboard. And back to that iconic purple Shop Pay button, it's why Shopify has the best converting checkout on the planet. If you want to see less carts being abandoned, it's time for you to head over to Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/MSTR. Go to shopify.com/MSTR, shopify.com/MSTR.
Let's talk about your existing holdings. As I mentioned in the intro, now worth around $10 billion. You have paper gains of about 70% or so, which a lot of people would like to see that sort of return. At any point, would you sell? When would it make sense to take profits there?
Well, I've famously said I'm going to be buying the top forever. Bitcoin is the exit strategy. It is the strongest asset. So what we see right now is the Bitcoin has just emerged as $1 trillion asset class. And it's alongside names like Apple and Google and Microsoft. But the difference between Bitcoin and the Magnificent Seven is Bitcoin's an asset class. It's not a company. There's not enough room in the capital structure of those companies to hold $10 trillion or $100 trillion worth of capital. So Bitcoin's competing against gold, which is 10x what it is right now. It's competing against the S&P index. It's competing against real estate, $100 trillion plus asset class as a store of value. So we believe capital is going to keep flowing from those asset classes into Bitcoin because Bitcoin is technically superior to those asset classes. And that being the case, there's just no reason to sell the winner to buy the losers.
Every generation, there's a new industry that pops up in finance that nobody sees coming. Back in the day, that was venture capital, then private equity, then leverage buyouts. For the last 16 years, it's been Bitcoin. And I think for the next 20 years, it will be Bitcoin treasury companies. I believe Bitcoin treasury companies will accumulate half of all the Bitcoin, becoming a $140 trillion industry, making it the largest industry in the world by value. And I believe that Strategy will accumulate 5 million Bitcoin, becoming a $70 trillion company, which would make it the most valuable company in the history of the world by a very large margin. As a starting point, this is where we're at. This is my 2025 update to my global asset landscape chart. we are now in a world with $1,000 trillion of global asset value, and Bitcoin is just 0.2% of it. Saylor has run with this framework and has asserted that half of all the value out there is just looking for the best store of value asset, and Bitcoin is it. Saylor created his own version of my Bitcoin full potential valuation model and input his assumptions to see how he thinks the asset buckets will shift over time. He thinks that in 20 years, Bitcoin will grow to be 7% of global asset value, becoming a $280 trillion asset bucket. This would mean $13 million per Bitcoin in 2045. Now, how are we tracking versus these expectations? The first version of my chart was put out in 2023, and I've recently updated the analysis. And that allows us to see how things have shifted over the last 2 years relative to the total and also in comparison to Saylor's predictions for how things will shift over time. Saylor expects that total asset value will grow at 7% a year, and we've been growing at 6% a year. That's pretty in line. Over the last 2 years, the big winners have been Bitcoin and gold, and the relative losers, the ones that are shrinking relative to the total, has been bonds and also money. Putting this into a heat map, we see where value is flowing from and going to. So capital is flowing from fiat assets, that's bonds and money, and going towards hard money assets, Bitcoin and gold. Capital is always seeking greener pastures, and you can see what is the greenest here. Now, Saylor has figured this out already, and he understands that there's a lot of capital tied up in the bond market, getting not great returns every year. And he knows that Bitcoin is a superior asset. So he has re-engineered strategy to be a capital pump to accelerate the osmotic flow of capital from bonds to Bitcoin. Now, he does this under the design of a Bitcoin treasury company. What he has done is he has, as a public company, has access to capital markets, and his company has a capitalist incentive to create products that are appealing to capital in the bond market, like Strike and Strife, which Strife offers a 10% annual dividend, which is a fantastic proposition to bond capital seeking fixed income nominal returns, usually getting in the mid single digits. And here comes Strategy offering 10%. That's a great proposition to bond capital. And that's why bond capital is saying yes to that proposition, handing over dollars to Saylor and Strategy for them to buy Bitcoin with, which they believe will grow at 29% a year. And they have to pay 10% a year in order to access that capital. So it's a win-win for everybody. So Saylor has access to capital markets, the capitalist incentive to design products that are appealing to, in this case, bond capital. And the additional important element here is that Bitcoin treasury companies have a mandate to focus on delivering Bitcoin yield to shareholders. So when you think about the cohorts of possible investors, there's only one here that has all three of these elements that are necessary to thrive as an entity delivering Bitcoin yield. As a result of this, you can think about Bitcoin treasury companies in the landscape of asset buckets. How do different asset buckets perform over time? Well, here's my view of how equities generate returns over time. Depreciating assets and inflationary assets obviously shrink your value over time. And Bitcoin has been the best performing asset because of its endogenous properties in this landscape. But now there's something that delivers better returns than Bitcoin, and that's because the entire focus of a Bitcoin treasury company is to generate more Bitcoin. As Saylor has said, the only thing better than Bitcoin is more Bitcoin, and this is how that will perform over time. As a result of this, if this is true, then Bitcoin treasury companies become the easiest way to access exposure to Bitcoin, and also the best performing vehicles for Bitcoin exposure because they are focused on generating Bitcoin yield. And that is why I think that a disproportionate amount of capital will flow into Bitcoin through Bitcoin treasury companies. And that will be an unusual trend to watch play out because an ocean of capital is sitting in the bond market looking for a better home. And Bitcoin treasury companies are the vehicles through which they will come to Bitcoin. And that will mean that the bid coming from Bitcoin treasury companies will make up a disproportionate amount of all bidding for Bitcoin over the coming years. And I think that it will make diehard Bitcoiners very uncomfortable as Strategy and other Bitcoin treasury companies continue to accumulate Bitcoin, and I think up to half all of the Bitcoin in these centralized entities that are run as businesses with the mandate of delivering Bitcoin yield to shareholders.
And there you have it, another episode of MSTR today. And here's my purchase from yesterday, a 0.55 share of MSTR. I bought at $383. That's my daily $210 purchase of MSTR that I'm doing every single trading day of 2025. This Sunday, I'll reveal the entire portfolio as I do every Sunday about where we're at, percentage-wise, gain-wise, etc. But remember this, there's a lot of bears out there. There's a lot of people fighting and shorting the stock. Anybody that's hating on MSTR, they've likely shorted the stock because they're clueless and they want it to go down. So just ignore that. Make sure that you know that you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I am honored to be one of those 5 for this 15-minute blog. So thank you for that. You know that I believe this is inevitable. This journey that we're on, it's inevitable, and that's bull with a capital Bitcoin B. And as Michael Saylor says, there is no second best.
What's the second best? There is no second best.